Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about some of the winners and the losers from this past weekend. Biggest losers is the officiating in the sport. I can promise you that. It has been an absolute nightmare, and I'm very much worried that it is going to impede someone's ability to win a national title. It might have done that to Alabama this past weekend, but a lot of different stuff going on in the sport, and we got to talk about some upset alerts. As we get into this rivalry week, there is a ton of things that I want to break down for you guys, and there are a lot of rivalries that might not be quite as important as they used to be, or they have been in the past couple of years, but definitely still some juice in this one. And we'll start with that Michigan-Ohio State game. Going on in Columbus this upcoming Saturday at noon. Ohio State favored by a little bit over 20 points. 43.5 is the over-under, and this one's going to be special in a lot of different ways. And obviously, Michigan is not this world-beating team that they expected to be coming into the year, that they definitely were the last couple of years. But this is 3 years of build-up. There are so many frustrations in so many of the minds of all those Ohio State players. Saturday is about letting them all out, all of them. And there's a couple of ways that Michigan can win this game, that they can find a way to make it close. And that way would be they go down, score on the first drive, make Ohio State think, man, here we go again. Maybe we're just going to get railroaded again by this team and get a little bit of doubt in their mind. And then you have to have the D-line just absolutely dominate this offensive line that is going through some injury trouble. So maybe you have a little bit of an opening there. But at the end of the day, if those two things don't happen, if you do not score first, if you do not have a D-line that just totally takes over the game, Michigan has no shot here. I'd love to sit here and tell you that Michigan has a real shot in this game. They would, I think they actually would, in a couple of scenarios where maybe if Denzel Burke and JTT and Jack Sawyer and all of these guys left last year, then I think they would have a shot. If, there was a ton of new transfer portal talent, there wasn't quite that energy in this one like there has been for the past couple of years, maybe Michigan would have a path here. The reality is those guys are really mad. Jack Sawyer is really mad. JTT is really mad. Lathan Ransom, really mad. Denzel Burke, really mad. Travion Henderson is very mad. So they're going to come out there. They want to beat this 20 points. They want to absolutely obliterate this team. I would not be surprised if the starters stayed in the entire time, regardless of the score. They want to beat the crap out of them, and I tend to believe that they're going to beat the crap out of them. So I'll put a 1 out of 5 on this one. There's always some magic up there in the game, but at the end of the day, I think Ohio State's coming in really, really angry. 3 years of frustration. They're going to let it all out on Saturday. And then you do have Memphis-Tulane. Cannot wait for this game. This is going to be a really, really fun one, kind of replacing the Egg Bowl as that Thursday night Thanksgiving game. So a little bit upsetting, but we still get a very, very fun matchup. But for Tulane, it really won't. It won't do anything for the AAC race by any means, but it would put them in a much better position where if they were to win this game, or if they were to lose this game, they'd be in a really bad spot to possibly beat out whoever the Mountain West champion is. If they were to win this game, I think they're in firm position where they're the number 2 in line. If Boise State were to lose, I think Tulane would jump right back up there, granted if they were to beat Army at the end of the year. But that's how I see it, them being kind of the second team in that rung, so this would be a win that they very badly need. And for Memphis, they've been a little bit hit or miss. The defense has not played well at different moments. I mean, the 2 losses that they do have are they gave up 56 points to Navy, they gave up 44 points to UTSA. Navy is a little bit more explosive, I'll give them that. UTSA should not be giving up 44 points to, just plain and simple. So a lot of things that have to happen for Memphis here, and I think it's one of those things where Memphis has the guys. If you just go guy for guy on this team, Memphis has guys that can absolutely step up. Seth Hannigan has really done a good job throughout his 4 years there. You have a number of other guys on the outside that can make some plays, but at the end of the day, when I look at this one, Tulane's just got too much. They got too much on the line. They have too many playmakers on the outside. They have a quarterback in Darian Mensah that's getting more and more comfortable. They have a Memphis team that can really get gashed on the ground, and Mekhi Hughes can gash you. So at the end of the day, the way I look at this one is I do think it's going to be a fun one. I think it could get a little bit back and forth with maybe a crazy finish. Who knows? But I do think Tulane gets this win. Probably a 2 out of 5 on the upset meter. I'm not super worried about this one for Tulane, especially with the extra motivation given how Boise State has looked recently. I would definitely try to get this win. I think they will get this win. Georgia Tech, Georgia. This is one that probably wouldn't be on here if Georgia looked a little bit better last week, but They did not. They kind of got gashed a little bit by UMass, and the biggest thing there was the D-line did not look very good. The D-line, I don't want to say got pushed around, but got kind of handled a little bit by the UMass offensive line. The Georgia Tech offensive line can do that. They are a top 12, top 15 unit in the entire country. They are a very, very good group, and if you can let that Georgia Tech run game get going, it's going to be a load to deal with. I'll be totally honest. This is when this game really gets interesting. If Georgia Tech can start getting 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards per carry, then you're in a tough spot if you're Georgia. Now, for the other side of that is you all saw some clips from that UMass game. Georgia's defense gave up 21 points. I have to imagine these practices this week are going to be a nightmare. I have to imagine that all those players are really pissed off with the performance that they put up. I have to imagine. So at the end of the day, it is a little bit of a double-edged sword. And then for Georgia Tech, they are still facing that weird quarterback situation where it's pretty much Haynes King comes in, they're probably going to run the ball. If Aaron Philo comes in, they're probably going to pass the ball. So I expect to see a lot of Aaron Philo in this game, probably going to lean on him a little bit more throughout the rest of the season, but it's going to be really, really interesting to watch this unfold. Georgia obviously still has a little bit of motivation because if they were to lose this game, then losing the SEC title, I think they would be out. So winning this game, I think, would send them to the CFP. They're almost definitely going to be fully up for this game, no doubt about that. I do think Georgia Tech can hang around in this one. They play really hard, they play really efficient, they play really clean. So I do think they're going to have some openings, but I think this Georgia defense is very, very angry. I'll probably put a 3 out of 5 on this one. I think this one gets maybe interesting for about a quarter and a half, or a half, or maybe 3 quarters. But at the end of the day, Georgia makes the plays to win and moves on to Atlanta for the SEC title. And then you do have Tennessee and Vanderbilt. This is going to be a fascinating game, and I'm putting a 4 out of 5 on this one. I do think this one's a little bit more interesting than maybe some people are expecting, but Tennessee was able to sidestep a nightmare weekend because they got to play UTEP. They got to hang out and get a pretty comfortable win over a relatively solid UTEP team, but let's be honest, it was UTEP. They got a pretty comfortable win by no worries, but the nightmare could be on the horizon. There is still a world out there where Tennessee's season implodes, just like Alabama's did, just like Ole Miss's did. So now you're seeing Vanderbilt, and it's probably the last team you want to see at the end of the year, because I don't know if anyone else feels this way. It feels like Vanderbilt still has some magic in them. It feels like they have one more punch left to throw, and this would be the time to throw it. There's no doubt about that. It would be incredible if they were able to win this game and able to totally tank the Tennessee title hopes. It would be wild. A wild finish to a wild year in the SEC. So wouldn't put it past them by any means, but just feels like this Vanderbilt team has a little bit of an opening. And when you're playing a team like Tennessee that has been very inconsistent throwing the ball downfield, maybe there's some more possessions for Vandy to have in this game. So going to be really interesting to watch. I still do think Vandy has a little bit of magic. I'll put a 4 out of 5 on this one. We'll probably touch on it a little bit more tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. But at the end of the day, I do think it's probably going to be Tennessee's game to lose, but Vandy's pretty good at taking those games at the end of the day. So going to be fun to watch that one. Notre Dame goes on the road to USC this upcoming weekend, and it's going to be a battle. There's no doubt about that. It's going to be a really, really fun one. I realize I forgot to update the line. Apologies for that. Notre Dame is favored by 7.5 in this game. The over-under is 51.5 to give you a better idea of what this looks like. And Notre Dame has probably the biggest hurdle they've had, really, since the NIU game. They did have Louisville earlier in the season, and that's kind of the big question that I do have here. Louisville is the only team really on Notre Dame's schedule that can match up physically, at least closely match up physically, on the defensive and offensive lines. USC's probably a tick below what Louisville is in that category, but still can match up much better than an Army, or much better than a Navy, or much better than a Wake Forest, or someone like that. So I do think it's one of those situations where maybe USC just has a little bit more physicality to stifle this Notre Dame offense just a little bit more, and then you're in a position where Jade Mayav has got to make some plays. He's a very special quarterback. He's a guy that can create off balance. He's a guy that can create off schedule, and he's going to have to do that. He's going to be pushed off his spot quite a bit because that offensive line very much struggles. The defensive line for Notre Dame is one of the best in the country. So it's going to be interesting. We'll break it down in much more detail tomorrow. So we'll break down that one actually, and the next one we're about to talk about. We'll break them down tomorrow. But I think there's rivalry. There's physical even footing and some playmakers on USC. I'll put a 4 out of 5 on this one, and we'll break it down and give you my official pick tomorrow. And then Miami. Miami-Syracuse is a very interesting one. Miami finds themselves back where they've been a number of times this year, and I think it makes sense that they've been here because the way they go about games just makes me so nervous. But now they head up to Western New York for a big-time game that could punch their ticket to the CFP one way or the other. I do believe if they win this game, they are absolutely in, even if they lose the ACC championship, so in a really good spot. And then Syracuse, been very up and down. They've played some really good games and, beat UNLV earlier in the year, almost lost to UConn last week. So it's been a little bit all over the place for the Syracuse Orange, and I do think it's been a really impressive year from Fran Brown in his very first year, but this would be the icing on the cake, no doubt about that. This would be the cherry on top that would make all this incredibly good, and I think the biggest thing here is Syracuse can really push the ball downfield. They can make some plays in the pass game, and this Miami back end has been shown to be a little bit porous at times. They played a lot better last week, no doubt about that, but it's going to be a lot bigger of a challenge. So we'll see what this back end can do. If they can step up to the challenge, then maybe you get a little bit more confident in this Miami team making a little bit of a run in the CFP, but it'll be interesting to watch this one. Obviously, another full breakdown. We'll do that one as well as the Notre Dame one tomorrow, so definitely be on the lookout for that, but I think this one's very interesting. I think Miami could definitely get pushed in this one. They haven't been quite as good on the road. It'll be interesting to watch this one unfold, and definitely one that I'm watching very, very closely. But a lot of upset alerts. Frankly, I didn't even get to Auburn, Alabama. I didn't even get to a lot of other games that absolutely could be included in this segment because it's rivalry weekend. You never really know where they're coming from. It's going to be incredible to watch all of it unfold, and we will obviously update you with it, all of it on Monday. But let's take our third break here, and when we come back, we got a little bit of a whip around for you. I want to get to all the Group of 5 conferences, make sure you guys know where all of them stand heading into that final week of the season, and then I want to get into just some of the under-the-radar games of the week. You have Louisville, Kentucky, a very fun matchup over there in the state of Kentucky, kind of the battle for the state of Kentucky. You do have Florida State this upcoming weekend that has some very interesting dynamics. Oklahoma, LSU just trying to force that rivalry as best they can over there in the SEC. So we'll update you on all of that right after this, so stick with us.